Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this tutorial I want to show you how to make this pendant, which is very spring inspired. At the time of recording it's all like, spring outside, and I wanted to experiment using some negative space as well as a very organic, viney look. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to start off by showing you guys some examples of what I was doing with this design. Here this one's made with the same exact materials as what we're using in this tutorial, except for I was using a different shaped crystal. Now here I have some opalite beads, and instead of a 16 gauge core base wire, I used a 12 gauge and hammered it out nice and flat and lots of texture, then used an 18 or 20 gauge, I don't recall actually, titanium parawire, and then these two here are done with more aluminum and copper core parawire. Just different wires can get different effects. The material or tools that you'll need are round nose pliers, flush cutters or wire snips, bent nose and nylon jaw pliers, as well as a mandrel. You could just as easily use a pen or a knitting needle. It's not necessary, but I do recommend for texturing a steel block or anvil and like a ball peen hammer. Here you can see I have just a couple of different bead compartments that I used for the mandrels. Different sizes get you different results, as you can see here, and just any shape or size, whatever you have on hand and what you like. So I am going to be using 16 gauge parawire. It's an enameled copper core. Highly recommend it. Very durable, non-tarnish, all that good stuff. Some 18 gauge in antique copper, as well as the natural toned copper wire. Again, more parawire. I really like it. They do also have bare copper if you want to antique it and stuff. I'm using 16 inches of the 16 gauge. What a crazy random happenstance. And I think I'm going to use my inch and a half mandrel for the diameter. Now here's just a very small fluorite point for, I think I salvaged from like an old necklace or something. You can use whatever crystals or stones that you have on hand for adorning, and you don't even have to use any beads or anything. It's just optional. So I'm going to come in about 6 inches from the end and start shaping our bail. So that's twice around the mandrel at around the 7 or 8 millimeter thickness. And I'm going to twist it like a twist tie 3 times. I recommend 3. It's just nice and solid. Like 2 would hold, but 1 just is right out. I'm not confident in it holding its shape and structure. Like, it doesn't feel sturdy. And then just carefully shaping the core wire around. Doesn't really matter what side it's on. I just preferred it on that side because it lends itself to the way that my hands feel strong when wrapping around something. Now normally I would have done at least 2 wraps, but with as much layering and stuff as we're going to be doing on this, I figured it'd be fine for just the 1. Now again, it's completely optional, but I am going to go through and I just want to texture like a spot of it. At the time of recording this, I was doing it very gently because my partner Randy was up in his studio recording a video, and I didn't want to be like knocking on stuff. But you can see even just that little bit of hammering gave a nice little texture. So now I'm going to go through and just bending the wire around, vine it around itself, just like if a cucumber or bean plant or a morning glory vine or something, we're growing around something, it just kind of loops itself around. And then I'm going to finish it off with a stylistic curly Q on the end. Oh, and sometimes if your wires pinch, they can kind of leave like a mark if the camera will pick up on it. And that drives me bonkers, especially on the enameled wire. Now you can go through and file it. That's especially effective for if you're using the bare copper, but on the enameled stuff, that just files off the enameling and everything. So something that I like to do is I'll actually get in there, and for this one, I'm going to open it up a bit with my fingernail and then use my, I guess I broke the tip of it, nylon jaw pliers. But just cram your pliers in there. I'm going to have to fix that, I think. But yeah, cram your pliers in there and just bloop, flip it over. It is the jewelry equivalent of kicking ice cubes under the fridge. Nobody will know that it happened, but it's still kind of there. And then just keep on going like it didn't happen. Just swept under the rug. But it's not going to be rubbing up against your skin at all. I did file it down first just in case. You know, mistakes happened, but quality is still important. And I'm going to go around and just continue vining the wire around that circle frame until I run out of wire for this one. I do recommend, I think, hammering, because it'll harden up the shape of the circle, and that way you can wrap, you know, just as heavy a gauge of wire around it without distorting your frame shape. I've also used like square, what's it called? Chessex dice, like the tabletop gaming dice. They come in these like cool square containers. Those are perfect mandrels. Like, I love those, very sturdy. But you could use just whatever you get your hands on. And then I finished off the ends there like that. Looks kind of sparse. I don't consider it done, but you can technically wear it. The bail is intact. Structurally, it is sound. Everything from here is just fun stuff, just decorations and things. So I've snipped off about 16 inches again of the 18 gauge copper colored wire, and I'm threading on my fluorite point bead. Sometimes if the bead doesn't want to fit, I don't recommend forcing it. Like, I'd recommend instead going with a 20 gauge wire instead of an 18 gauge, but I really wanted to use this bead, so I just crammed it in there, boop, and used my bent nose pliers to strong arm it through. If it were a softer stone, like a turquoise or a malachite or something, that would have broken the bead. But fluorite can take it, so I didn't mind it. And I'm just laying it on the front of the piece and worrying first about getting it structurally sound. So I'm doing 3 wraps on each side, making sure that the point is centered. And hey, kitty. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my cat. Yeah, making sure that it's structural. I don't want that crystal wobbling around on us. I think the cat caught some fishing line or even some wire. Oh my, so there you can see we've secured it on both sides, and now we start getting to do some fun stuff. Hey, kitty. You're a good girl. Yeah. Yeah. And you can add in as few or as many spirals as what you like. Oh, you did bring me some wire, didn't you? That's a good girl. And I'm just kind of shaping it around. Now, you'll notice I kind of just push the wire through. Instead of sewing with the end of it, I'll push it just right where it is, like with my thumb. And that work hardens right where I'm at, but I feel like puts less stress on the wire that I will be working with. But I'm also wildly inconsistent about which tactic I use, so you do you. If you Sometimes when I'm doing this design and I'm working on one side and I'll like kind of lose inspiration, like I'll be like, what do I do next? Then I'll often just go over to the other side. Like here, like I finish up this spiral, I'm like, change sides. And I think that's a great way to just kind of follow your muse, your inspiration, and, you know, establish balance on both sides. And also you can evolve equally on both sides of the pendant, because sometimes you'll stumble into something, you know, and be like, oh my god, okay, we're doing this, I can do this, and you can incorporate that on both sides. Whereas if you get one side completely finished and then move over to the other side, you'll have learned from that. Like, I hope that makes sense. But I don't know, I think it makes the piece more cohesive, I guess, is if you work on one side a bit and then work on another. But that's just me, so you do you. Now here I'm experimenting some more still with using like little wires cutting across the negative space, but always I'm trying to have the, oh my god, Vaughn, what are you doing? Please get back in. I'm so sorry, I did not mean to go out of frame. Oh. So let's pretend like we can see what I'm doing. And here you can see I just kind of laced through one of the spirals. it's I try to have all of the wires laying or vining in roughly the same direction. I just like the way that it looks. It's almost like just they're all twisting in the same direction, and it makes it look a little cleaner, I think. If I twisted in the opposite direction, the wires wouldn't lay in between or on top of each other as cleanly. They would actually start to look quite bulky, which sometimes that can be exactly what you're going for. But for me, on this piece, that was not. So, oh, I do hope I go back into frame. This is just driving me crazy. This is driving me crazy, and I was there. I'm so sorry for those of y'all who are watching this and you're like, Vaughn, what are you doing? I was just, pretending to be a professional. So now I've just put a bit of a twist into it, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to do a curly Q. Then I was like, what if I just do like a loop, like it hasn't grown up to be a curly Q yet. And so never hesitate to use your pliers. Also, by the way, the more you use them, the more you'll build up your like brain plier coordination. It's kind of like eye hand coordination, but with pliers. And then I snipped just a bit off, just enough that I can put a little bit of a curve into it in my round nose. And then, oh, I guess I'm gonna zoom in, so hopefully y'all will be able to see a little better what's going on. But I'm just gonna, sometimes it's gonna be hard to know how to hold the pliers, but smoosh, sometimes it just works. So make sure there's no pokey bits or anything, but that way we can bind off the end of the wire without having to worry about, too many curly cues. And so now we're gonna come around, and I wanted something to help blend. Hey, pretty girl. Oh, such a good kitty. I wanted something that would help blend the base of the crystal into the rest of the piece, because I wanted to make it look like this is like a garden, that it grew this way, that, not that it was assembled, but that it grew, and that the crystal was a natural part and was supposed to be there, and the wire kind of vined and grew around it. So at least that was my thought process behind it. Kind of making more just curly cues. I really recommend, if you don't like the way that your spirals and curly cues look, practice on some scrap wire in a bunch of different sizes, because sometimes you can be nailing like really good 20 gauge wire spirals, but maybe your 16 gauge spirals, aren't quite where you want them to be. So it'll come with practice. So here I've cut off about 22 to 24 inches of 20 gauge wire, and I've threaded on a 6mm faceted bicone bead. And wandering off camera again, that's great. An experiment. I kind of didn't really like the way it was laying on that side, so just untwist it and feed it back through. That is another thing that I really do enjoy about parawire, is it's soft enough that it can afford a little bit of work hardening. Especially if you've got some nylon gel pliers on hand, you can just use them to straighten that wire back out and get right back to wrapping with, no harm, no foul. And I just wanted to nestle that bicone bead kind of in between those two spirals from the very beginning. Kind of give the piece a little bit more weight in that one corner. And again, a lot of this is just experimenting with threading the wires through in different spots and cinching them down and being like, well, how do I like it right there? Well, I guess I like it all right there. And again, I'm like, okay, next side. It just to follow wherever your inspiration takes you. And I picked up a fuzzy somewhere. There truly is, you guys. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's art. If it holds together, if it made you happy, if it looks the way you wanted it to look, then you did it right. Now, I do put a lot of emphasis on it holding together, especially for those of us who want to sell our work, just because, that's a good thing to do. And also, is it comfortable to wear? Because you don't want something that's going to be, well, I don't know. I can't speak for you, but I don't want something that is going to be like constantly scratching or gouging into my skin. And I certainly wouldn't want to sell something like that, just in case the client had very sensitive skin. So now, again, just experimenting with threading the wires through each other. Now that we've got kind of a lot going on, it becomes a little bit more about just filling in empty spaces. Ooh, yeah. And I really enjoyed using the two different tones of copper wire on this one. It reminded me a little bit of new and old growth. I've been doing a lot of gardening lately, by the way. But like, last year's growth on a lot of our like, vines and stuff was woody, after, going through the winter. But in the spring, it gets this green, fresh, new growth on it. And so I thought maybe the combination of the antique and bright copper would kind of, I don't know, it was pretty. I also really like, you can see I had just framed one of the curly Q spirals with some more wire. And I think that's a nice way of kind of just building up the thickness on one side of it without being too, uh, putting too much on that one spiral. Because you could also go around and do this, and instead of just manipulating one wire at a time, you could be manipulating both wires at a time. And if you guys are interested in that, I'd love to do a tutorial. Just let me know down in the comments and stuff if you're like, yes, more like this style. Because this style can be really difficult to replicate. Like, even for me, I did 5 pendants, or 4 pendants. This tutorial was the 5th one in a row. Hey, kitty. Hey, no, no. Don't do that. Thank you. Sorry, the cat's beating up the desk. And every single one of them looked pretty different, and I was trying to get them to match. So don't feel bad at all if your pendant ends up kind of nothing like this tutorial, like the one that mine came out with. I wanted to teach the core concepts behind it so that you can go forward and do all of the things that you're going to do so well, with your own particular flair and style. And if you would like to share pictures of your work, you can tag me on Instagram, #craftalongwithvaughn, and that way, we can see your work. Randy and I can, as well as anybody else who searches that hashtag. And I'd love to see what you guys make with this tutorial, though. Like, especially like 100 points to, I don't know, Gryffindor or something, to whoever can actually completely replicate this piece, because I wish I could, like, kind of replicate like that, if that makes sense. So I've reached the end of the wire. I really did just kind of space out and ramble a bit. I'm sorry. Hey, puppy. Sorry. I guess it's bedtime for the animals. I had made a spiral at the end of the wire and used my bent nose pliers to smush it flat, as well as the side of them to just kind of press it in, condensed in with the rest of the work. Sorry, that's Sam Dog, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, pretty kitty. And now, with this last length of wire that I've added, you can always, don't ever feel like you have to use all the wire that you've put in, and don't ever feel like that you can only use as much wire as what you originally planned. But this last wire I am using to kind of try to blend in anything that doesn't look or feel as cohesive as what I would like any spots that look sparse. And I'm just kind of threading right through the center of a spiral. Because even though I built this in layers, like it kind of sculpted and grew it in layers, if I can make them look blended to where it's like, which layer came first? Like, how did these vines grow around and in each other so much? It just, I don't know, I think it adds just a little bit of a magical feel to the piece. And just coming in with some flesh cutters, or wire snips actually, which flesh cutters are flat on one side. These ones do a pinch on both sides, but that's all right. And then we're just going to do a little spiral by holding the wire as close to the tip of the wire and as close to the tip of the pliers as we can, and then just looping that on in, just like so. And you could have added a bunch of beads, you could have used a bunch of different colors, all sorts of stuff. And then we could also go through with our nylon gel pliers and give it a smush all the way around, or hammer it. That's very interesting. Watch out for those crystals though, because they will smash. So yeah, you can see those two, the sister pieces. These will be posted up for sale on my Etsy. Links for that are down in the video description. But yeah, there's those two silver ones that I really like. I really love that use of negative space with the opalite, and just, I don't know, it's fun. And so the possibilities are endless. Hey y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with me during this video. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. If you'd like to share pictures of your work, you can find me like on Instagram or my business Facebook page. All the links for all that stuff will be down below, but you can like tag me or post it, and just any way that I love seeing y'all's work. Y'all do me so proud as a teacher, and you guys inspire me all the time with your creativity and how you can take something that I show you in a tutorial and make it just so cool, like beyond my wildest imagination. So yeah. If you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, there's links to my different like Patreon and Etsy and stuff down below with more details about that if you're interested. But otherwise, please just keep crafting and doing the thing that you do. And until next time, y'all, happy crafting. Bye.